Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. You don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Says what? Why is that? That should be read down.
Not necessarily.
Should be showing up there. Yeah, I'm gonna move the camera.
Shoot, that's fine. That girl's an album. The thing is, she is just constantly shoving.
Thanks, guys.
Like, I made her too much of that.
If you're joining us by way of the live stream, I apologize for the motion sickness. All right, you all, I'm going to set this here. How do we look, Graham?
You might do a little closer, but
A little bit what?
a little closer, but maybe just like
What do you think?
right.
Because no one goes there.
Like that, maybe?
No, you gotta get the I think right there is good because it'll do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Dawn?
See like the screen of the person.
I'll move. No. I'm gonna sit right there.
Okay, just remember, this has an ambient mic. It's picking you up as we speak. So I'm saying that to the person I know is the
So I don't
church foul
say
mouth.
so I don't say any bad words.
That's right, exactly. It's set for kids. I know you well enough.
Are you double?
All right.
Yeah.
Jay, do you want to say something?
I know, but yeah, I just relax.
Bless you.
Thank you. The cookies, I guess. Here goes nothing.
Good afternoon, church family.
Good afternoon.
Hopefully we've filled our bellies with lunch. The challenge will be keeping our eyes open for the rest of the afternoon.
Don't oversell it, Jay.
Yeah. The challenge is, though, we have got an incredibly busy year coming up ahead. We've got many opportunities that we as a church can grab onto and run with. And in that sense, we have, as the EC, decided to reorganize the way we do business amongst the groups and the committees. And this is the kickoff to that reorg, if you will. As we've thought about it in the past, we tend to be a little bit stovepiped. We go off, do our committee things, and there isn't a lot of cross-communication. We want to change that. So instead of each of us having our own monthly meeting to do with it as we choose, we have opted to pull everyone together into more quarterly meetings so that we could all focus towards the same objective. We could all move in the same direction, and we could all make progress towards common goals. That becomes incredibly important this year as we have so many things coming up, things that we've known about for years, like the growing downtown community, and some things we've only known for a few weeks, like FCC needs a new home, and we're here to provide. So as you spend the next hour or so with us, please engage, be creative, think about how you and your team can move with the goals and objectives we're setting forward. And with that, I'd like to bring forward Dan, who will kick us off.
Hi, everybody. Part of what we'll do today is kind of introductory. It's just meant to help us get used to this idea and to present an idea that helps kind of hopefully frame us to being working and swimming all in the same direction, trying to get everybody moving in the same direction. I want to start by doing something that I rarely do, but I feel like it would be a fun way to kind of get into this, and that's to show a little bit of a movie clip. I am a long time action movie guy. I love action movies, have for a long time. One of my favorites in the early 2000s was the remake of The Italian Job. Anybody watch it? Got Marky Mark in it, you know? Yeah. This is a scene, and if you've seen the movie, you'll know this and you'll recognize it very quickly. It's a scene where Seth Green's character has hacked into the traffic lights in LA, and he's intentionally creating a massive traffic jam, okay? Now I want you to see the visual. I'm not worried about the actual process here so much as I want you just to kind of pay attention to the visual of it. As I play it, kind of just pay attention to what happens. I'm gonna jump over and start it there. I'm gonna have to skip ahead just a little bit. While I do that though, if you are in a place where you can't see, then, oh, you know what I need to do? It just occurred to me. I need to hook it up to the sound system.
Daily life is
Does that ignore the man behind the curtain? As you say?
That's right. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. You got room, Kathy.
Okay.
We're moving out.
3 Kilo Pop, 2 Fox 5, we're heading to the airport.
Is that loud?
Okay guys, truck 128 has turned right heading west.
We're locked on.
We've crashed. It's not a crash. We've got power. I can't log in.
They're about to hit a major detour and be sent your way. You'll never shut down the real Napster.
Truck 128, what is your progress? This is truck 128. Traffic's out of control here. We gotta look for another route.
Keep the police bed.
Okay, I'm opening up space on Highland.
Oh, get us out of here.
I'm trying. He's taking.
Police scanners are saying computers are down at traffic control center.
Nice, Charlie. You up too.
Go back.
I now command you to turn left.
Come on, take the left.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Just getting to the good part. Sorry. Just getting to the good part. Everyone got real excited to see the rest of the movie now. Let me get my remote hooked back up here. Okay. So the image I want you to think about when you see that is the image of all of our ministry teams operating on their own, in their own corners, and all of a sudden we think we have green lights in front of us when maybe we should have a red, and we start kind of colliding into each other on accident, not on purpose. But we end up finding ourselves in a position where because we're not working out of a shared vision for ministry for the season, we're all doing our own thing really well, but maybe it's not really helping the church go anywhere, right? And so what I want us to do is to begin thinking about how we operate, and to start with why, because I think what we often do is we start with what we do. And so as you look at this, most organizations will start from what, and they try to work back to why. They can all tell you what they do. They can maybe tell you how they do it, but they can rarely tell you why they're doing it, right? They almost can never get to why. And so they might tell you that they, provide this and this service, and they do it by, let's just take Family Promise as the example, right? Family Promise provides temporary housing for families who are experiencing homelessness. That's particularly people with dependents, right? That's their slice of that service pie. They know what they do. How they do it. They partner with local congregations like ours in order to provide space, food, and a place for these families to be for a week. Why do they do it?
Because they have no place to go or eat or whatever, so.
What would their mission statement be? What would Family Promise's mission statement be? Would they be able to tell us that? Would be a question. Right? Maybe, but we're guessing because it hasn't been communicated clearly to us. So we don't know, right? So we're working from what with Family Promise? We know their what is what we can provide, right? I think we do the same thing internally as a church. I think each of our ministry teams knows what they do, and they do those what's very well. But when we work from what first, what we end up doing is we look at last year's calendar and we copy and paste it onto this year. We don't wonder why we do it or start from a deeper understanding. And so what then happens is when we all work from our what's, we end up running into each other on accident, right? We end up colliding, trying to figure out how to make all these things happen, all these what's happen, even if we can't remember why we're doing it. I had this conversation with Katie and Shazia a couple of weeks ago, and we sat down and talked about this, and I said, the calendars, it kind of solves itself when it comes to worship. We don't have to plan when Easter is. It is. We don't have to think about the what in that regard. We do have to think about why we do what we do and how we go about doing it. If we use our musicians as assets to provide a service for us, and all we're focused on is what they give us and not why we ask them to share those gifts with us, then what we do is we unintentionally turn them into objects to be used, right? That is the opposite of you matter here. That is, you matter here as long as you provide a service for us. You matter here as long as you continue to perform. It doesn't feel like you matter here in the sense of what we mean for it to mean, right? And so what I'm asking is that while what we will do at these quarterly meetings is instead of starting at what and working to our why, we get and help set a why in these conversations, and then we get everyone to help us work in the same direction out towards the what. Okay? So as it relates to what the image I want you to take away from that kind of thinking, instead of the major traffic jam at the intersection, is more like trying to get all the crew on the ship. We're all on the same ship, working towards a shared purpose and vision, goal, and trying to make sure that we are all headed the same direction, right? What we've done in the past is we've had the annual beginning of the year meeting, get everyone kind of rah ready, and then we turn loose and nobody ever sees each other again. We all do our own things like we've always done. It's not working. Our downtown is growing around us, and we're still shrinking. We have to change the way we think about ministry and why we do it. It can't just be because that's what we've always done, right? My former preaching professor, one of my favorite sermons she ever wrote was called The 7 Last Words of a Dying Church, because we've always done it that way, right? We have to figure out how to begin to do things differently in order to meet the changing need. Many of the folks who have been faithful servants and stewards of our space and our building and our ministries for years have been able to do so because of generational differences. There's not a household I know of in our church of families with children where both people aren't working. That's the reality. Very few of them live close enough to be able to come in on a weekday at noon. I had to have this conversation with FCC the other day. They wanted us to have our admin board, our executive council, and their admin board meet on Thursday at 11:30 in the morning. And I had to say, well, that might work for your admin board, but my executive council, 4 out of 6 members are fully employed outside of the church. They have to go to work. They can't meet at 11:30. So even that is starting to think a little bit differently about how we go about these things, okay? So as it relates to that, our why, we have wrestled with for the last year and tried to get to a place where we feel like we want to talk about it, is that you matter here. And some of our how might be by providing you a voice, by giving you a space where you can ask questions, by making sure you feel loved and not just used, by giving you a space where you can serve others if that's where your heart is. I had a conversation with a young couple today who sent me an email, and their email simply said, hey, we love coming to church here, but we want to do more. They don't want to attend meetings. They want to do things. They want to volunteer and serve. And so they're asking for real hands-on ways to be of service to others. And so they want to have a place to serve. They want to have places to explore their faith and find community and meet with God. And I've often said that I think the church is like a table or a stool that sits on 4 legs. You go to the New Testament church, it's the same. You go to almost any church in our country right now, you'll find the same 4 legs on every church. Some version of these things: worship, outreach or mission, fellowship or community, and education, some aspect of Christian education. Whether that's small groups, Sunday school classes, lectures, whatever, they're all trying to provide these 4 things. So the way that we want to get all of the teams heading the same direction for the next quarter, we're thinking about the next quarter, right, is we want to pick one of these legs and say, okay, as your team focuses on this leg, what can it provide in ways of sharing this message that you matter here? And what we're saying is we want you all to focus on the education leg for the next quarter. Everyone to have some aspect or thought about how they're going to provide Christian education or lend itself to Christian education in the church. Let me give you an example. This is anytime I use examples, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, okay? So I don't want this to feel like I'm picking on somebody, but I'm going to use this example. We want people to feel like they have an opportunity to be welcome in our building on Sunday mornings, right? I think we would all agree to that. Before COVID hit, we offered coffee upstairs in the greeting area. We don't offer coffee upstairs in the greeting area anymore. It's not been back since we came back from COVID. Whoever said, we know who set it up before, it was Richard, but whoever set it up before never picked it back up, probably because they never got instruction to pick it back up. But so now if you're a guest in our building, we encourage you to come in that door. There's a sign outside that says, welcome Sunday school through this door. And they come in that door. They might run into me or Katie if we're not running around trying to manage something else. Hopefully they run into one of you and ask where they might be able to attend Sunday school. And then they say something like, well, I'd love a cup of coffee. Oh, well, let me walk you down the Hogwarts staircase to where you'll never find your way back, downstairs, through a dark hallway from the other building, where we'll find a way to get you to a coffee, and then you'll have to find your way back, because I got to teach a Sunday school class. I'm imagining I'm Gary in that scenario, right? Gary wouldn't do that. He would walk the person down and be late for Sunday school, but I'm imagining that's the person he runs into right there, right? So, a simple thing. But who's in charge of it? Which team?
Hosting.
You think so?
All of us.
Right?
Everyone's.
Should the pastor do it? Right? So here's the challenge. There's a million ways to begin thinking creatively about how we can communicate to everyone who enters this building and everyone in this room who serves through this church that you matter here. We do it by valuing each other, not for what we do for each other, but we do it in a spirit of wanting others to feel the same way when they come in our building. I could easily imagine Jonathan gladly raising his hand and saying, yeah, I make coffee every Sunday for you. He's one of the first ones down here every Sunday to get a cup. But it took him a few weeks to figure out where it was and how to get back up. We're lucky he stuck, right? That's just a simple example of what I'm talking about. And so over the next hour, we're going to give you guys an hour to meet in your teams and start thinking through these things. I'll just throw some things out, right? We know our deacons are thinking about devotionals for the Lenten season. That is an education aspect. They don't have to be on the Christian education team to think that way. How do we think about our space as it relates to property team, right? We know that with FCC potentially moving in, we're going to be reallocating and moving things so that there's space for them as well. How can we get ahead on that, provide spaces for Sunday school that are valuable and valid for those that need it, right? Those types of questions for the next quarter. And the hope is 1 quarter from now, we'll do this again. We'll come down, we'll go, hey, what did you do? Report on your team. What did you guys do in the last quarter to help us achieve this vision of living into You Matter Here? I could easily see like CET, our community engagement team, saying, we want every Sunday school class to have You Matter Here posters in their Sunday school class so that we're all thinking this way all the time. We need people who walk in this building to know they're valued. It's the right thing to do. It's the Christ thing to do. And it is what we do well whenever we actually engage with folks. It is who we are. Okay? So I'm going to turn you loose here in just a moment, and we're going to invite you all. I'm going to pull the You Matter Here banner up here so you can see it and refer to it as you need to. Yeah, Chelsea.
I have 2 questions.
I have maybe 2 answers.
So the first clarification, when you say you want us to focus on education, do you mean as the worship team, what can we help them with? Or as someone who joins a Sunday school class, what do I observe?
Those are great questions. Both is the answer, right?
Yes.
I want you to be thinking about, boy, what would I look for in a Sunday school class or another Christian education opportunity?
But not necessarily how we would contribute. Like, we can contribute ideas, but you don't need us to physically be doing things.
We want, thank you for that clarifying comment. We want your input on what might be a way for you to engage in Christian, like ways that you would think would be engaging for you. But more importantly, on your teams, we want you to be thinking about how your team can contribute to helping this church solidify and move towards the same direction as it relates to education. I don't mean all teaching the same thing. I mean that every class these people encounter, every person they encounter on Sunday morning or at other times, they know that they matter here. That our Sunday school teachers know that they matter here. As it relates to worship team, how are we equipping and empowering our lay volunteers? How are we using our energy to build up future singers? Right? So that's not always Michelle and Chelsea and Reyes and Lori, right? And Rick. But that's what I'm saying, is Rick feels like he's been equipped and empowered by that team. So who's the next one? And who's the next one? And who's the next one, right? And that's what we mean by education. It doesn't have to be you're sitting down and studying the Bible, right? There's a lot of ways to think about education in the church, okay?
Thank you.
That's a good question. Other questions that can help clarify. What we find is all of these teams all have their fingers in some of these pots, right? Those 4 legs of that stool, almost every team in here has they touch on it somewhere, somehow. And that's what we want to look towards, is how do we get all of our teams swimming the same direction so that we're making progress and getting ready to receive these downtown neighbors who are moving in. The neighbors, the young couple that talked to me today about service, are, by the way, the living example of what we're talking about. They're a young couple who sold their house in the suburbs and are now renting a studio apartment 2 blocks from our church, and they're walking to church. They are the people we're talking about. They love how open we are. He told me today, I just love that we're here because of how open this church is. We have to keep that spirit because they feel valued when they reach out and they get a response from their pastor or whatever, you know. And there's other ways for us to all help lean into that. We just have to be intentional about it. It's not going to happen by accident, I can tell you that. Okay? Other thoughts, comments, questions? All right. Break.
So are you technically the bishop?